Hello and welcome to Taking Liberties, episode 24. My name is Lee. This week I'm joined by Tim in
Hello, Victoria.
actually, in Victoria. No, I just realised that I had your the temporary picture I put up whenever your camera dies. So now you can see on the video his lovely face. We've got Tim in Victoria, and we've got Vicus, who's always seen maybe not so pretty. He's in Canberra.
Oh, not so pretty.
Yeah. Okay, this week we've got two topics to discuss. We're going to be talking about the same-sex marriage plebiscite, which has been a big deal in the Australian political landscape, and we're going to talk about the backbencher revolt, as much as there is one, with the Turnbull government having a very slim minority, or majority, sorry. Let's talk same-sex marriage first. Now, it should say that we've actually talked about this issue before. I should have to check which
But it
episode.
just keeps coming up.
It keeps coming back. But we talked about it when Ireland had a plebiscite and they were successful. So I'll make sure I'm going to throw into the description the link to that previous episode if you want to hear our thoughts then. I think Zeev was joining us as well. So we have thoughts. But this time around, now it's in Australia, the plebiscite, a vote for the plebiscite in Parliament came to be. It was defeated. When Labor and the Greens voted against.
Well, it hasn't been. It's been introduced in the House of Reps,
Okay.
but it hasn't.
It's been
Labor
introduced dead on arrival because the Greens and Labor have said they're both going to vote against.
Well, it looks that way at the moment,
Yeah.
but
It's a good point. It could change.
So it's an interesting sense of politicking from their part, because here's the thing. We had a vote in 2012, right? An actual vote of Parliament. And that Parliament was more sympathetic to same-sex marriage than the current Parliament.
no, it wasn't. It was actually because the coalition had a binding no vote, and the majority of Labor MPs voted against it.
So
including
do you think the
Julia
coalition...
Gillard, Kevin Rudd, Wayne Swan.
Do you believe that the coalition is going to allow a free vote? Ever?
Well,
on this topic?
the plebiscite proposal is a better policy than having a blind no vote.
Correct.
Well,
So I'm saying
except-
that this Parliament is actually better.
Yeah,
Except-
so that's actually the point I'm getting at, is that this level of politicking, it plays towards the Labour crowd only if you ignore the fact that basically they're going to need the Liberal Party to have a free vote as well as the Labour Party to have a free vote in order to get the bill across the line. And we all know that will never happen. Ever. Ever, 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 ever. Like in the words of Taylor Swift, never, ever, ever, ever going to happen again.
I don't.
Well,
I
that's
think it's.
because
I think it's possible.
No,
That's because
no,
the coalition has. They've been to an election saying we're going to put the issue to a plebiscite, so that is going to be their policy for the foreseeable future. And even same-sex marriage supporters in the coalition, like Simon Birmingham, have said that it's the plebiscite or nothing.
Yes, precisely.
So
And that's the reality, right? Like there is the reason why the Liberal Party won't ever do it is because a sizable chunk of that sizable chunk in there that opposes it, right, is enough to win in the party room to make sure that it doesn't go as a free vote, right?
Well,
then-
they'll do whatever it takes to.
then why would the
to-
plebiscite even happen then?
No. The plebiscite happened to shut the moderates up, effectively,
Right.
right? That was
It was a compromise so that the party wouldn't tear itself apart. That's what
Pretty
that's
much.
what it was
But
to keep one of the two major parties together.
Yeah, so if you actually if you talk to anyone who's been in that party room, they will tell you the majority is against same-sex marriage, right? And everybody who's ever done the number counting on this says the majority of the Liberal Party is against it. The question is, to what degree are they against it?
Yeah,
Right? And
there'd be a soft, a group of soft people against it softly, and then there'd be a group of people who are, hard against it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
so
the point
so
is
I
if you
think
try-
the people who are hard against it will never change their minds. So
Yeah.
your Cory
Well, they're the
Bernardis,
ones
America
who'd be
Betts and those
prepared
ones.
to blow up the party.
Sure.
that's what Tim was saying is absolutely correct. Those guys would be willing to blow up the party to prevent it from happening, which quite frankly confuses the hell out of me. I'm sitting there going it's actually a really tiny issue, and the end effect of it is actually non-existent, right? We allow same-sex marriage. We allow same-sex marriage tomorrow. What happens in Australia, right? Same-sex couples can now
Well,
get
they
married.
think that the reason why it's so important then because if it becomes law, then they're worried about what will happen to religious liberty in the future, what will happen to the family. So even though it's
Okay,
a
so-
small
so
practical
firstly-
change,
firstly-
but they're
firstly,
saying
if
that it'll
if you're-
lead to a big cultural shift.
Okay, fine. The cultural shift has actually already happened. If you look at the population of Australia as opposed to the parliamentarians, the population of Australia fine with gay marriage. The majority even support
Well, they're just opinion
same-sex-
polls.
Opi- the entire
So-
point of a plebiscite is saying the only reason they're pushing for a plebiscite, right, is to say that the majority of Australians don't support it. But like everywhere where there's been a plebiscite on this in like the Western world, where people have been given a chance to like vote on gay marriage, okay, with the exception of American states, it's gone the other way, and we are
No,
not.
that's not true. Ireland's been the only successful national referendum to approve same-sex marriage.
It's the only national one, but there have been several like local ones, and it's only the states where it's the opposite trend. In the states, gay marriage loses almost every time, but that's a side issue.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
no.
No,
Gay marriage-
Ireland's been the only national one. There's countries. What is it? I think it was Bermuda. They just recently had a vote on same-sex marriage, which got defeated. There was, I think, what was it? Slovakia. I think they had a vote on same-sex marriage. It got rejected. So most of the time, it does get rejected.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, I come to think of it, that I should have spoken. I should have actually remembered, because I did do the same argument before. You're actually right. The only national referendum that's been had is Ireland. That was successful, but all the states in America, and I didn't even know about Czechoslovakia, but they tend to be on the defeated side. But
The turning point in the US was 2012 when 3 states voted in favor of same-sex marriage and 1 rejected a constitutional amendment banning it.
yeah, and that's what pushed it to the what is it?
Supreme Court.
Supreme Court. Yeah. All of that aside, the point is the Australian public are on a different page than the politicians. Like every opinion poll shows,
Allegedly.
that's fine, right? And that's the entire ground. That's why I personally think a plebiscite's probably the best way to go.
Yeah.
So, but
okay.
sorry to clear that up. But the point is, like, with respect to this particular policy, I think a plebiscite is actually more likely to carry gay marriage across than the parliamentarians. I don't think the parliamentarians will ever carry it across.
Sure.
At least not for a long time.
So my thing is that the reality is that most politicians are hacks. They don't have principles. They have winning elections, and that's their goal. So even though I think that even a majority of the coalition party room are against same-sex marriage, I think if you had an overwhelming vote like a 60% or more in favour vote for same-sex marriage, I think you'd see them change their tune because they're hacks.
No. It's all also about how important that issue is to the public, right? Because there's loads of issues that are immensely popular. Like if you take a look at the opinion polls on nationalising the banks, it's like 75%. Right, if you take a look at it's like 75% popular. Like if you went out to the public and said we should nationalize the banks, you would find 3 and 4 people.
You mean like Bill Shorten?
Yeah, like Bill Shorten.
The referendum, though, what is it? In 1947, failed on nationalising the banks.
Yeah, it did. But now if you look at it...
70 years is a long time in politics.
Yeah, 70 years is a very long time, even in reality.
Yeah.
But the point is, if you take a look at it, and what was the name of that group? Essential Media did a poll of like 30,000 people, and they found something like 70% want to nationalize the banks. Right? Now I'm sitting there and going like, that's a pretty freaking terrifying number if I was a hack.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not that important. All those people who said that, right? If you told them, what if you got a tax cut, right? What if I told you get a tax cut?
Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
For the tax cut.
But I think when you have a big vote, like it's one thing just to do a poll. It's another thing to spend, whatever it was, $160 million or whatever it is having.
It's 175 million because they checked on 15 million for the stupid advertising campaign.
Sure. So,
which, by the way, is retarded.
It is retarded.
It is.
But
it's not actually it's not actually like a blank check to the Christian lobby. Like there's heaps of like controls over how the money's spent by what is it? They've got this special committee of 5 MPs and 5 citizens. So it's not like they're just donating 7.5 million to Christian
actually,
lobby.
of a novel point of interest, it's actually the same amount they gave to either side in the Republican debate, like in 1999.
Which was also stupid.
Yeah, which is also stupid. But it's funny to say, like, inflation and all the rest of it. Anyway, having a whopping great big election on, essentially an election on this issue, a vote on this issue, I think it might change things. It certainly changes the nature of the debate, because instead of why are you so bigoted, is why are you going against what the public has said, and that I think it's valid to say, yeah, sure, it matters how people rank those issues.
Yeah, well, my biggest complaint about that idea, and it's been the same since in the last episode, is that it's not binding.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Election promises are not binding.
Yeah.
After elections, politicians can just do the opposite. This is no different.
Brexit's not binding.
No. We can actually but there is something that you can do to make it binding, which is what Warren Ensch and David Lynham were pushing, which is that you push the actual bill first, right? And the proviso on the bill is that the bill cannot assent without a successful carriage of the
Well,
plebiscite.
that's what the coalition might propose to see if they can get Labor across the line on it, because Brandis has said we're open to compromise, so I don't know what that means exactly.
That would be the perfect compromise, in my opinion. If they say, we will pass this specific gay marriage bill, we will be talking about this specific gay marriage bill, and this bill, like, the thing is that completely negates any of the scare campaigning or anything that, the no side would probably want to do. And yes, it kind of neuters their campaign, but at the same time, it is exactly like what happened in the referendum, where we weren't talking about some nebulous idea of a republic. We were talking about a very specific Republican model, and that's the one the Australian public rejected. Now, I would happily accept that plebiscite bill, right? Sorry, that marriage bill that then goes to a plebiscite and gets accepted or rejected, because that's a straight out question to the Australian public, and it's left out of the politicians' hands entirely. We don't have to worry about, Eric Abetz said he wouldn't vote for it anyway. Like, that's the way I do it.
It seems pretty reasonable. I don't think politics is reasonable, though.
But there is a complication on it, which is that obviously the same-sex marriage bill that the coalition would want to pass is different from the one that Labor would, in terms of the coalition would want to allow for conscientious objectors, florists, bakers, photographers, whatever, while Labor has said, no, we don't want any exemptions from anti-discrimination law. And so there's probably going to be another shit fight on that front as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the shit fight that's going on in the US, even though essentially same-sex marriage has been legalized everywhere.
So that's actually been interesting for me, in the sense that I actually don't understand why conscientious objection needs to be written into the legislation. I would be actually targeting the actual act itself, not the.
But that is too much of a radical proposition, because it brings up the whole question of, is it right to discriminate on race, gender, or just refuse service to someone because they're gay.
So
that doesn't even have to do with the wedding.
So that's a bigger debate that actually needs to be had. So that's actually an interesting objection point, because I've always seen people propose this as it's the end of religious liberty, and I sit there and go what you're describing as religious liberty just seems like, to me, that you're losing your ability to refuse service. And quite frankly, I wouldn't be phrasing it as I'm losing my religious liberty. I'd be saying I'm losing my right to refuse service, right? Because that's effectively what's happening.
But that's a language thing. Like, religious liberty, it sounds much more about freedom, rather than my
really
right to as it's called, the right to be a bigot or whatever.
Yeah, you know what? I actually don't think it does. So, in my mind, religious liberty is about being able to worship. It's about, having your beliefs. But when you start saying religious liberty is about, me saying that I don't want anything to do with those gay people, I'm sitting there and going, are you sure that's not religious liberty? Sorry, are you sure that's religious liberty, or just you wanting the ability to be an arsehole? Right? And don't get me wrong, I don't think being an arsehole should be a crime. I just think...
It's probably good for your own sake, then, Vickers.
Probably very good for my sake. I don't think that being an arsehole should be a crime, but at the same time, I think if you associate being an arsehole with religious liberty, that actually does religious liberty a lot of damage. And that's actually been the biggest problem, is that religious liberty is treated as basically people being douchebags.
Well,
that's
see,
why
I think
the
part of the
debate
issue, part of the issue is that I think lots of people who believe in, like, lots of Christians, and let's be real, we're talking about, like, Christians who are going to be targeted with this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Lots of Christians don't have a consistent approach towards, like, freedom of association. I mean, really, like, the whole opposition to same-sex marriage is predicated on the basis of not believing that everybody has a right to freely associate with whoever they want. So, I think they kind of have to reframe it as religious liberty, because that's kind of what they want. They only really care about themselves, which sounds harsh, but it's true. They only care about their own ability to live their lives, and they're not worried about a consistent approach to refusal of service.
Yeah.
Just
No, you're absolutely right.
But I mean, it is a religious liberty issue, because it's about, like, people's religious convictions don't end when they leave church. So, for me as a Christian, my theology and my religious beliefs are integrated into every aspect of my life. I can't separate them out and say, I'm not going to do this, like, just because I've left a church building, like, it's not like I leave the religion there and then go off. I mean, I'm sure some people actually do, but for genuinely religious people, that their beliefs are part of every aspect of their lives.
No, but
as a libertarian, I think view things quite differently from others. Yeah. But I think I know lots of people who are not insane who would probably refuse to bake a cake if they were a baker, and they would have a somewhat reasonable basis for doing that. I can see why they would do it, and I certainly don't want the government to come along and force them to do it. No,
see, here's the thing: I don't want anyone to force them to bake a cake, but at the same time, to echo Gary Johnson, I would basically say, bake the fucking cake.
Sure.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
I can't disagree. If I was a baker,
2 dudes or 2 women that like to sleep with each other. For fuck's sake, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, is it any matter? Is it any concern of yours?
And but I mean, like, that's I mean, and that's true. But there's lots of I would serve black people as well, and if somebody from the KKK doesn't, like, I don't understand why they would do that. Like, there's lots of
don't get me wrong.
Like, there's lots of really weird reasons for why people do things. And it's just the way it is. Like, but yeah, I agree. But we should actually move on.
Liberty is also about the freedom to make wrong decisions.
Yeah, exactly.
And we also have the right to criticize those wrong decisions and say they're crap.
Don't get me wrong. I would absolutely criticize them, and I understand that this is me sort of streaming on to the bleeding heart libertarian side, because I would absolutely call out that shit, and I think it needs to. Needs to be.
And speaking of wrong decisions, let's talk about George Christensen, because what isn't wrong about that guy?
Hang on. Can we, for the benefit of all people, can we refer to him as the Australian Peter Griffin?
Yeah, the Australian Peter Griffin.
Yeah.
It's a bit like that. Okay, so we're going to talk about the backbencher revolt. So Malcolm Turnbull's having issues being in close to minority government. With keeping his own...
Dude, 76 seats. It's a majority government.
But it's 76 seats, which means 2 people move, and all of a sudden you don't have a majority government. So,
and we saw what happened the first sitting week back. A few of them nicked off early, and then, oops, there's our majority gone.
Yeah, exactly. So, at the moment, there's... the media is awash with stories about backbenchers pushing around Malcolm Turnbull. I mean, essentially... The super changes, I think, are sort of looking a bit shaky.
Well, they've compromised, had a compromise on that now. I don't understand the detail because superannuation is such a boring topic. But they compromised on it, and then George Christensen held a press conference saying, "This was, my work. Well done to me. I'm so good."
Yeah, and then there's Russell Broadbent, who's some lefty who happens to be in the Liberal Party. He's talking about getting a sugar tax.
That's not going to happen. I mean,
it's not going to happen. But
from the far left of the party. I mean,
No, I mean, it's never going to happen because the Nats will basically storm in and go, "No, we've got sugar growers in our electorates."
I'd say that George Christensen is a person who wants to cause a lot more trouble than somebody like Russell Broadbent does.
Sure. So the question is this situation we're in right now, where backbenchers can push around a prime minister, a more libertarian world than when the executive can do whatever the hell they like? I would argue, even though we possibly might get some really bad ideas, I'd rather live in this world than live in where the executive has unlimited control.
Well, so you want George Christensen to run the government?
No, well, I'm happy for George Christensen to push around the government in the hope that maybe somebody with less idiotic ideas might come along and make the government do something a bit smarter in general.
So I think we've said this before. If your system is entirely predicated on someone being angelic, the best, most virtuous person possible, in order to make it actually run effectively, then the system you have is prone to failure. So, in my mind, something like this is probably indicative that Parliament has perhaps too much power. And maybe, if you beat people enough with a stick, they will learn that, not to do something in a similar way to training a dog. So what my hope is, the George Christensens, the Pauline Hansons, you name it, whatever other dropkick politician everybody hates gets in, people start learning that maybe Parliament needs to be wound back just a little bit. Maybe.
Well, yeah, I don't know if that would be any more true now than
We had a
years.
similar situation in Victoria from when the Bell-Napthine government was in power. It was 45 seats to Labor's 43, and then there was Jeff Shaw, who was he kept getting involved with these scandals, and in the end he decided to resign from the Liberal Party, sit as an independent, and hold the government to ransom on. He wanted to get abortion reform up, and he also wanted to, I think, get a judge removed.
Well, you can't say he's not ambitious.
I assume you mean abortion reform as in allowing abortion in Victoria? Because that's
limiting abortions in Victoria.
I thought they were pretty damn limited already.
No, Victoria's got one of the most liberal abortion laws in the world.
Oh, okay.
Which is saying something.
Yeah.
So there's an argument that I heard, I think it was on Econ Talk, actually. I can't remember the guy they got on, but he's basically saying, actually, in the context of the US, that actually there should be more power to the executive in that there should be the ability for the president to put forward a bill that gets an up or down vote with no amendments. So it's a bit like the fast track for process for treaties. And his argument, and this is where I think it's relevant, is that the leader of the country has more of an incentive to care about national problems because he's trying to build a legacy, and so he should actually care about what happens where the congressman...
Are you nuts? Have you seen... Yeah, I was going to say, have you seen... Okay, so there are loads of states which have similar things already in the states. And if you take a look at it, one of the things that's hampered the removal of the death penalty is basically governors sitting there and going like, I'm too afraid to get rid of this because I think I might get voted out of office.
Sure.
Right? And despite the fact that legislatures, like the only removals of death penalty that have occurred in the United States have been by legislatures that have taken it out. So let me put it this way, what you're talking about sounds fantastic if you had the right person in charge.
Sure.
Right? Who was like a bit of an autocrat and didn't give a shit what the public thought.
So his defense is essentially, because the US is what we've got got now nationally, which is you've got all these different people, you've got to please all of them to get anything done because you don't have control, like you don't have the sort of discipline like you have here. And so what you end up having is every bill through Congress is a Christmas tree. Everybody gets to hang on the little ornaments. So you pass these behemoth bills. They got terrible ideas.
Yeah. The way you can actually fix that is by doing something that Australia's done, which is that you can only allocate money to one bill at a time.
Sure.
Right, that would fix up the problem.
We're getting to sidetrack because I want to get to talk about whether it's actually better to have more discipline than less. So. Theoretically, if you've got Parliament holding the executive to ransom every time they want to do something, you could actually get worse ideas because they have to pander more, and they have to pander to George Christensen. They've got to pander to, all these hacks, all these people who have terrible ideas, Corey Bernardi, all these guys, because the only way to get things through. And so, the counterpoint to it's great because we've got kind of chaos is reigning, the inmates are in charge of the asylum, That's more libertarian.
It only seems like that the people with the wrong ideas ever seem to get noticed. I mean, like in the last Senate, it was people like Jackie Lambie and Glenn Lazarus who seem to be running the government's agenda. So it's philosophically the question's different from what we've seen in practical reality.
Yeah. And that's partly because, like, as a senator, you need to get your face and name out there. But the reality is what you're talking about, like, more chaos versus less chaos. More chaos is preferable if you want to slow the growth of government down. Now, if you had a government that was actually reducing in size, that would be not just problematic; it would actually be detrimental to your cause. However, we have successive governments, and we have for the last 6-ish years, probably longer, maybe closer to 9 years. For the last 9 years, we've had governments that have successively wanted to keep growing the size and scope of government. So I think a little bit of chaos would actually halt that progression down.
Minority government didn't stop, Gillard from passing, spending more money.
Yeah.
For the benefit of the non-observer Australian publics, they had an actual minority government. They didn't have enough seats wholly on their own to pass legislation.
Yeah, that's true. But keep in mind, the people that they helped get across the line were also a bit of, agrarian socialists and lefties. So
sure, yeah.
They technically had a majority of the left.
Yep.
This is more like a majority of who cares. If that makes sense.
Well, I guess you could have a couple of actually fiscally minded liberals actually hold the government to ransom in this case as well. Like in the case of an actual minority government, you're held to ransom by your independents, by the crossbench. In this circumstance, the Liberal Party is held to ransom by their own backbenchers. Because they're the ones who hold the balance of power.
George Christensen has hinted that he might defect to One Nation if he doesn't get his way on certain issues. And so Barnaby Joyce and Peter Dutton have had to say, oh, no, he is a team player.
That would be hilarious.
Yep. It'd be a pretty good fit as well.
Yeah. Mostly because I actually think he's actually a really good fit for One Nation.
Yeah.
He's a protectionist as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say. He's a fierce protectionist. I think he's in the wrong party. And there's a lot of people in the LDP, the Liberal Party, the LNP, the Nationals. There's a lot of people in the Nationals that I sit and look at and go like, they're not quite liberal, so I don't know what they're doing there. Although I realise that sentence makes no sense since I called them the Nationals, which I've been.
Well, in Queensland, it is the Nationals.
Yeah,
they're
the majority.
Yeah,
but the point
majority.
But the point is, stark raving agrarian socialists do not belong in any party that calls itself a Liberal Party.
No,
but they are. But they're there. There.
I've seen it down in the southwest of WA. Like, there's no. The Nationals don't have much of a presence, and so the Liberal Party basically has all the people who would have been in the Nationals.
It's fun times in WA at the moment.
So the potato marketing board, like after it was scrapped, there was like a big meeting in Busselton put on, I think even by the Busselton branch, complaining about the fact that it got scrapped because there's essentially one guy who is a potato farmer, or used to be a potato farmer, and has been for generations so, and basically he was really mad. And he was the guy that if you wanted an event, he'd bring 40 of his mates who'd all bring their wallets. So, if that guy's got sway, he's going to make use of it. And in that case, it was the PMC. So yes, there's plenty of that. I mean, yeah. Any final thoughts on the backbencher revolt before we wrap things up? Because we've got about a minute to go.
I would like to see, obviously, backbenchers of more classical liberal libertarian streaks start to flex their muscles if George Christensen is going to continue. I mean, where's Friends of Liberty, trying to do stuff in the Liberal Party?
This is where I wish we had Tim Andrews, because he could give us a list of names. You could say, oh, this guy and this guy and this guy.
Oh, yeah, he always says, like, but these people are really good. And it's like...
Well, now's their time to shine.
Well, now is their time to shine, and I've been saying that for the last couple of years. I mean, all the people that
Tim Wilson, Julian Lisa.
Hey,
No. See, here's the thing, right? Every one of these people that gets put in, right? If you take a look at it, they just shut up and do exactly what they're told. right? And here's the thing. I think that when they put these people in, it's a really good way to shut up people clamoring for more liberal ideas, because now all those people that you previously had criticizing about your big government conservatism are now, cheerleading for these classical liberals that you've supposedly brought into the tent. And occasionally they might put up an idea in the policy room.
18C's backed by guys like James Patterson and Tim
Say
Wilson.
ABCs.
18C reform.
18C, yeah.
So
yeah,
it's possible, not likely.
It's possible, but by the time they get there, they'll have passed so many illiberal. Okay, so this I kind of imagine this as the old, Hades trip to Hercules trip to Hades, right? He's gone all the way to Hades, done what he's done, and then he's gone now I've got to go back on the River Styx and go all the way back to Olympia. Seriously.
And the reality is, a guy like Tim Wilson, if he keeps his mouth shut, theoretically he could have a shot at a ministry in time. He's a bright guy, he communicates well, he looks good on telly. He's got a chance as a real career as minister. The best way to sabotage the possibility of a career as a minister is to continually criticize your leader for being completely against liberty. So, that's why I've got no hope in the future of the Liberal Party, because there's no way I'll get.
You just have to speak out on issues every now and then. I mean, it's not that radical.
Well, it is by normal standards in our parliament.
Yeah. You're talking years and years and years to get that promotion, and when he does, you're talking piecemeal improvements at best.
Yeah, sure.
1, maybe 2 things.
I'm not saying it's a good strategy. If
it's
I was a member of parliament, I would not do it. I would essentially accept the fact that I've got 4 years in parliament, except I won't have any longer than 4 years in parliament, and just go ham, standing up for liberty, because. What's the point of doing otherwise?
That's why you'll never stand for.
That's why I'll never get pre-selected, because I've got articles, I've got videos where I'm constantly criticizing the Liberal Party for being a bunch of idiots.
That should be your goal, to become a candidate and then get disendorsed. That's the only reason I would ever be in a major party, so I can get disendorsed.
Yeah.
You know what? I was in a major. I've been in 2 major parties, and I did not even consider that. Huh?
Which for the other one? You in the Labour Party?
Labour.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. There you go.
Yeah. I started in Labour left, and then I went all the way around to the Liberals.
The things you learn here on Taking Liberties. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll be back here next week. Probably talking about more stuff, and all right,
stuff.
Yeah, stuff
and things.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Bye.